Hi, this is Gurisi Singh, and you're watching My Thick Accent Podcast.
Today, I'm thrilled to welcome back an individual whose story inspired many in my last season. She's joining us again to talk about the incredible path and the mindset that fuels her work. Last season, we talked about her journey from being an international student studying kinesiology to becoming a business analyst at Deloitte. She's the founder and CEO of Redefined, a nonprofit dedicated to fostering inclusivity and recognizing diversity. Since we last spoke, she has once again created many waves, amassed over 10 million impressions on LinkedIn, built a community of 50,000 immigrants, recognized as LinkedIn Top Voice. She's a career coach, 2 times TEDx speaker, 1 Young World ambassador, and has spoken over 40 talks. Her story was also featured in Times Square, CTV, and CBC News. And in this episode, we'll dive deeper into her mindset, catch up on where has she been so far, and talk about the behind the scenes of the event that she loves to organize. Please welcome Ritika Saraswat.
Well, excited to be here. Thank you for having me. I really enjoyed the last time we had our conversation, and I'm looking forward to diving into some of the new things that have happened, because a lot has happened in the last, I think, 6 months or a year.
Oh my God, it's going to be 2 years almost.
Oh, wow. Okay. Yeah. Well, a lot to talk about. So.
Absolutely. Welcome. Very, very excited to have you once again. And like I mentioned, your episode was definitely one of the top 7s, and I've got like so many questions about you, and definitely I have those with me. So let's just dive right into it. And is it your first time in Montreal, or have you been here?
Yeah, this is my first time. I was just in the Uber coming here, and I was like, wow, everything looks so different and vibrant.
Absolutely.
And I was definitely giving away the tourist vibes, and the taxi driver knew it right away. And I was like, yes, new here. So yeah, I'm excited to explore more.
What was like your initial impressions when you came to Montreal? What was it like?
I think it was like, it just seemed very vibrant and very I think full of energy, and I think there's more, it's hotter here than in Toronto, so I think it definitely feels more happy. Just, summers I think we all associate with happiness compared to winters, which are dull oftentimes, so it's refreshing. Yeah.
Okay. And remember, you were also telling me on the phone about a certain metro station. You know how hard it is to pronounce certain things because doesn't come naturally to us, the French, right? How do you feel about that?
No, I mean, I think it's been for all of us, as immigrants in general, I think just coming to a new country, I think the accent and knowing how to pronounce certain things certain ways is obviously a challenge many a times, and French is way beyond that, obviously. I actually took French for 2 years while in high school, but I know nothing in French. So don't ask me, but yeah.
Okay, awesome. So to kick off this episode, I would like to revisit some advice that you shared to younger Ritika in my last season. And you talked about telling younger Ritika to focus on gaining experiences and recognizing the glass balls and plastic balls in life.
Oh,
you remember where it was a great analogy, glass balls, obviously things which are pretty critical and might not give you a second chance to work on, and plastic balls being something not so critical but still need your attention, but not the immediate one. So tell me, what would you say are your current glass balls and plastic balls at this moment?
Oh my God, you always put me on the spot with these questions. But I think for me right now, I think glass balls being those major priorities right in life. I think for me, my family and health is definitely one of those. I think when I initially started on my journey, a lot of us get carried on in that rat race of just running, wanting to reach that end goal and get that cheese slice as soon as you can, as a big of a cheese slice as you can. And I think we sometimes end up compromising our own health and well-being when doing that. And I realized that my health is not just mine, it's my parents, it's my sister, and so many others who love me as well. So I feel like we owe that responsibility to take care of ourselves. So for me, one of the glass balls has become is just focusing on my family, making sure I take out time for themselves and myself as well. Because I think just in the last 2 years, I've seen a lot of deaths happening in my family and others, and it makes you realize how fragile and how
Absolutely.
limited our lives are, and so we need to cherish those. So I think that's definitely one. I think second glass ball for me is like the community that I'm building. Immigrants and international students in itself, it's a very vulnerable community and demographic you're working with. So I think they are my babies to me. I feel like I'm related to them somehow, either as a sister or as a sibling or something. So I think they are always my priority. Every initiative I'm thinking of, and I know when we'll chat about this, you'll notice is like compared to what we were doing before, a lot of our programs now are more focused on creating that longer term impact, right? Because I think you can keep doing how many ever events that you want, but an event is still a one-time thing.
Yeah.
Right? And it needs to be recurring to have that long-term impact.
Like
so
a
I think,
follow-up. Yeah.
yes, exactly. So my focus is now more on how do you create that longer-term impact, which obviously takes a lot more planning, a lot more behind the scenes than being out there in the front in the limelight, right? So I think those are definitely some of the glass balls. I think plastic balls would be. Good question. I haven't thought about my plastic balls, but I think plastic
I think you
balls,
don't have time for that. You were too busy working on all these
the
events.
glass, yes, yeah. But I think plastic balls would be things like, which again are priorities, but aren't like a deal breaker in many ways. Like, things like applying to awards, getting these other opportunities. For me, my entire life kind of revolves around work, which I know is pretty boring. So a lot of my glass balls and plastic balls are all related to work, but just different aspects of it. So
what do Ritika do for fun? Apart from, what's like your go-to way of unpacking a day, let's just say?
Oh, wow. I don't think I have a concept like that exists,
Okay.
like unpacking a day. I might have like a concept of unpacking a week.
Okay.
I think it really depends on how the week has been, how the month has been. And I think that's the part of work-life balance that we talk about, which I think is so subjective. For me, I don't prefer that concept because for me, you have life and work is a part of it.
Yeah,
there isn't
absolutely.
like work or life. It's both together, right? And I think for me, like there are some days where I feel like I need that break, but then there might be 6 months where I go back to back and I don't need that break because I'm doing something which just brings me so much energy. So I think it really depends. But if I want to take that break, what I might do is space it out and maybe like once every few months, take like a one-day vacation. Like I'll go to a city nearby, book out an Airbnb, and I'll still be working, but it's just like a new space, a new setting. And I think it just allows you to be more like calm and focused on yourself.
Yeah, just like today, you came to visit, but I
Exactly.
end up doing this podcast.
Exactly. But I'm still enjoying myself. I love talking to people. I love being in front of camera. I'm doing both things and I'll get to explore a city after. So
100%. Awesome, great. So moving on, this next segment is something I've added new in my second season, which wasn't there before. And I'm trying to turn up the fun factor a little bit in my second season. I'm trying to take the edutainment route, still educating and give a little bit of fun to people as well. So next questions are sort of in the same segment, okay? So my first question is, what's your go-to breakfast?
go to breakfast, avocado toast all the way, and like just boiled eggs. Yes, either that or the days I'm feeling more like sweet, it'll be muesli with like a bunch of berries, like blueberries, strawberries, apples, bananas, any fruit I can find in the kitchen, and some honey on top.
Okay.
Yes, that's my good friend.
Love that. Mouth is watering for sure. I also see on your stories, you always go to the second cup and get those smoothies and everything.
Yeah.
And I kid you not, after watching those stories, I have started going there as well. And, I say that because I feel like when I came to Canada, to Montreal, I feel like the menu of Second Cup was very different before.
Yes.
And they've like switched everything after like pandemic. Something happened,
Yes.
Second Cup, you're watching sponsors.
Yeah.
So tell me about that, is there something you still do or go to just at home, just avocado and this muesli?
So I think this is definitely the home thing, but I think whenever I have to go outside, there's this place in Toronto, if anyone's watching, please go visit. It's called Moss. It's a cafe. And they have the best chai lattes. Oh my God. I know there's nothing called chai lattes because chai is just the tea, like it's chai.
It's just chai,
But that's what we call it in North America. So, but they have the best because they have flavors like cinnamon and cardamom and so on. So it's amazing. It reminds me of home. So that's definitely one I love to get as a drink. And I think the second one is getting smoothies. I forgot the name of the place. It's called Glory Juice Co., which is based out of Vancouver. And they have the best smoothies and acai bowls, but very expensive. So get it once in a few months, but yeah, definitely. Yeah, those would be some things.
Okay, awesome. Too much talk about the food, huh? So next is, tell us about your favorite song or a dialogue or a movie and why it's significant to you.
A song, a dialogue, or a movie? I think I really like Three Idiots. I know that's for all my Bollywood fans out there. Three Idiots has been a movie that resonated with me a lot because I think it in many ways still speaks to a lot of the work that we try and do through Redefined as well, right?
Yeah.
It's all about helping you look outside of the box and not commit to the directions that people lay out for you, right? A lot of us, especially who come from South Asian heritage, we have things put into place for us many a times. We have been told, hey, these are the 5 career paths you should choose once you graduate from your high school, right? And that's what even I came in with is, yes, I want to be a doctor because my parents told me to, or because everyone else around me is doing that. So it felt like the norm, right? And I think there's this concept in India as well, right? You first become an engineer and then anything else.
Absolutely, yeah.
And that is very fascinating to me because it feels like so many years of life gone by doing something you never really wanted to do, right? Imagine who that person could become in those 5 years that they spent doing a degree, right? So I think at Redefined as well, it's the same concept, even with immigrants, international students. When they are coming in, they're likely to follow what their friend next door is telling them to do, right? So if they are doing a part-time job, they're like, hey, you should also do that, right? See how much money I'm making. I'm affording that iPhone, right? I'm affording that Starbucks coffee every single day. Not realizing that that may actually not be your end goal, right? Because everyone's journey is different. Our end goals are different, right? If you follow someone else's, you're going to find yourself going where they're going. And that will lead you to be dissatisfied and not happy, and then lead to, the host of other issues that we see immigrants facing.
Exactly.
Yes,
It's not like becoming the first Einstein or first, it's like becoming the first Guru or becoming the first Ritika, right?
Absolutely, yeah.
Totally. And I think you really love The Idiots because, I don't know if you remember, you actually mentioned this in previous episode as well.
Oh, really?
Yeah, we were talking about something
crazy.
and in the final final segment, and you actually mentioned your Three Idiots, and I really liked that movie. So I think you really love Three Idiots.
Yeah, I think I really, oh wow, I didn't even remember.
Yeah.
Okay.
Okay, awesome. So teach us something in your mother tongue, anything you would like to teach to the people who don't speak our language,
Oh, interesting. I think maybe I brought this up in the last episode, so I don't want it to be repetitive. But I think the concept of Gurmukh and Manmukh. I always bring that up because I think like it's something so new to people. It's not a terminology we come very commonly across, and I feel like it's a term which I think resonates a lot with the values I uphold in my life, and I think it is what helps me be more disciplined at times and make sure I'm heading in the right direction, because I think at times it's so easy to get distracted.
100%.
Even on your laptop, Netflix is right there, so many things are right there, and we all procrastinate at times. And the concept of that Gurmukh, and I think a lot of you watching may know that concept, but if not, do we want to describe it, or?
Sure, yeah.
Yeah, like Gurmukh is basically like, I think the difference is Gurmukh is someone who thinks through your mind, I guess, where if it's emphasizing or prioritizing the needs over the wants. Whereby if you have to get an assignment in today, even though that Netflix TV show might be so amazing, Bridgerton, that has come out, you still prioritize to get that assignment because that's a need. And the Bridgerton show is a want, right? Yeah. Even with terms of expenditures, right? And I think it's so relevant to even immigrants overall, because we see ourselves wanting to do things which are more of those wants than needs, right? Yeah. The reason students are working 7 days a week, 5 hours every day at a part-time job, it's not to make ends meet. They can make ends meet in 3 days they work, right? Yeah. But the reason they work 2 extra days is because they want to fulfill wants, which are getting those Jordans, right? Yeah. Affording the latest iPhone, whatever that is. And that then takes us so much away from the goals that we have initially set out for ourselves. So I think
that's where the Manmukh is talking,
Exactly, yes, yeah.
Okay, awesome. So if you could teleport back to your home country or any place in the world, where would you go and what would you do?
Wow, Gracie is really putting me on the spot. I think if I have to teleport, it doesn't have to be a place I've been to.
Yeah, it can be anywhere.
Anywhere in the world, okay. I really want to go to Bali. Quite honestly, there's no reason or logic. It just looks beautiful. I've seen too many stories about it, and I'm hoping, because there's an organization called Utopia. I'm one of their youth ambassadors with them, and they're based out of Bali, actually. So a lot of their initiatives are happening there at the local level. So hopefully, if I get to go there, I can join them in their, initiatives happening regionally.
Okay, even then, even on once again thinking about vacation, but at the same time working as
Why
well.
not
You know?
have two birds with one stone, right?
Absolutely, yeah. And also, I think nowadays Bali has become pretty famous amongst Indians because they can't go to the other place we can't name, you know. So they're pretty popular to go to the Bali. So okay, perfect. So that's the end of this segment. So that's amazing, wonderful answers. So now obviously, like in the last season, we talked about your childhood, you talked about your upbringing and the impact that your mother has had on you.
Yeah.
And one thing you spoke very briefly was about the boarding school, that you actually went to boarding school, right?
Yes.
Tell us about that experience.
So I went to an IB school, right? My parents wanted to send me abroad for education, but I've always been a mama's kid. That means like I could not live without my mother even for a day. If they left me at the relative's house, I would want to be back the same day because I'm like, where is my mom, right? And the idea that, okay, we have to send her away to live by herself, away from her mother, it felt so far-fetched. And that's why my parents were like, you know what, let's do it a pace at a time. So that's why they put me in day boarding initially, which was this concept where you stay there for the entire day away from your parents and they come pick you up later. And then I switched to weekly boarding. So the entire week I used to stay there, and then it eventually switched to monthly boarding, right, where I was staying like in the boarding school the entire month. And this was at Indus International, which was an IB school. So their curriculum was fairly similar to the North American curriculum. And that's why it was very easy for me when I came here as well to transition, because I had already exposed myself to the idea of already crying a lot of staying away from parents. I'd already been through that and adapted. So now when I came so far away, I was pretty like adapted to the fact of being far away from parents. I did not miss them as much. So I think that really helped me prepare in many ways. And I think that goes back to that concept of that preparation piece, which I think is so important.
100%.
So, yeah.
Okay. And then speaking of moving abroad, you came in 2018, I believe, to study kinesiology. Obviously, we discussed about that and you move into business analyst role. 2018 to 2024, it's been 6 years, almost 6 years, Ritika. I also actually came in 2018.
Okay.
Yeah, and to tell me, like, what is something that you discovered about yourself after coming here in the past 6 years?
I think I discovered how resilient I am. And I think it's not just for myself, I think it's for most of us here, right? A lot of us, from the time when you enter into the country, you realize, wow, not everyone looks like me, right? That I think we don't realize how big of a shock it is, but it is, because we, for the longest time, have affiliated belongingness with people who look like us, which may not be true either, right? Because I have found the bestest friends in people who may not be from India, for example, right? So I think like that was like, I think starting with something like that, where you suddenly start feeling like one in many, it is a lot of pressure as well, because now it's not just about, oh, I'm alone kind of a thing, but it's also the responsibility you now uphold because you are representing your community.
100%.
So you constantly, I was feeling this a lot, where everything I did, every time I spoke in class, etc., I was like, wait a second, if I do something wrong, people are going to assume this is how my community is, right? So for me, I think that was a very big, I think kind of a burden in a way that I put on my shoulders of like living up to certain standards and expectations I was setting, so that I was setting the bar ahead and people would not just see me in a high way, but my entire community, right?
Yeah.
So I think that also was something else. And I think, when we start transitioning to the job market as well, we all know the main thing, okay, you don't have Canadian experience, right? That being such a big challenge and a topic of conversation. And I think for me, there were a lot of rejections that came as a result of it, because, me transitioning careers as well from kinesiology to consulting, me being an immigrant and wanting to get into the job market, sometimes being even a woman wanting to get into the business world, right? I think it has many factors to it, and I think having those constant rejections and still being willing to kind of get up and be, you know what, you have said what you wanted to say, but I know who I am, I know what I can do, and I'm going to write this story because I have the book, I have the pen, right? All I got to do is start writing. And I think just realizing that and bouncing back was, I think, what helped me keep going. And I think that's what I keep doing even today, because it's not like rejection stop, it's not like questioning stops, it's going to happen every single day, right? Even my relatives back home constantly question why my parents sent us abroad, saying that they wasted their money spending education on me and my sister, right? We still get that to this day, imagine, right? So there's always this thing of wanting to do more and better and better. So I think through those things.
Okay. Yeah, you said it right. Like, we are somehow asked to fit in a certain boxes when we come, like I think I mentioned it before many times on the podcast that I was, kind of stereotyped to someone who was going to just go and drive a truck. You know?
Yes, yeah.
And once again, there's nothing wrong in that.
Yeah.
But just that you cannot associate every turban-wearing person to do like a certain job, or
Exactly.
maybe a person with a certain skin color to go and do like a certain job, right? So I think that's what I also try to aim to do with this podcast as well. And then speaking to individuals like yourself, who has broken those, glass ceilings, and you have for sure, look at the LinkedIn, for example, the kind of people that vouch for you. They really back your arguments as well, where you have also talked about your manager, at your that pizzeria place you were working at, right? Who maybe commented to you that, hey, like people like you really do certain kind of jobs, but you said, no, I am here, I'm going to write my own story, and you cannot define how I'm going to live my life. And I think that's how you call it, redefining as well, right?
Yes, absolutely. Well, Gurashis, you've got it. Your marketing is absolutely on point.
100%. So you can talk to a manager for the money, okay?
Yeah.
All right. Was there something that you were not prepared for, Ritika, when you came? I'll tell you an example of myself, When I came, I knew I'm going to do my chores on my own, my cooking on my own, yes, my study, living my life on my own. But I wasn't prepared that it will take me forever to find an accommodation. And I think it took me a month to find a good place, and which I never left for 2 years because it was so hard to find. I was moving to a new place every week, and it was so freaking hard. Tell me something that you were not prepared for.
I think most of the things, right? Because I feel like the things that I talk about on what students should do comes from the fact of things I did not do. And once I came here, I realized how I should have, right? I always say I even started Redefine because the year I spent figuring things out, I feel like a lot of that figuring out could have been avoided if I had known things before, been more aware, networked more with people here, right? So I feel like I came in pretty unaware of a lot of things, right? For me, I think I was fortunate whereby I had one friend who was going through to the same university as me. And, I was fortunate I went to an institution that had housing. Right? So the initial housing problem wasn't as evident. But as soon as it came time in fourth year to move out, that's when it struck. Wait a second. I got to sign the contract with the landlord. I got to figure out that I have a good landlord, right? Those kind of things were fairly new because I think while you live in student accommodation, you still are pretty much in a safe space,
in
if
a
I
shell,
have to call it.
Somehow.
Yes, but I think now as soon as you graduate, that's when I feel like you feel like, oh wow, I'm by myself, I'm holding the fort, right? No one else is there to support kind of a thing. So I feel like that was when, in fact, I felt more of the, oh, wow, kind of a feeling instead of initially, where I think because of just the institution I was a part of, that just made the process a lot more smoother for me. Yeah.
It's like initially it would be something that you have at least like a place to go to. You have there's somebody who sort of like to guide you to this new place.
And I had one friend, right? So the day I arrived, I met her the first day. So that made it easier, right? Because she had been there a month already. So she knew where things are and the housing was already sorted out. But I know we have this new program launching, I'm sure we'll talk about. But we have a lot of students coming in now. So they have a lot of this unpreparedness. Oh, what's the housing going to look like? Where will I live, right? How do I talk to these landlords? Because their institutions don't have housing options, right? So I think that also shows you how at the institutional level, there's a lot we still have to do in Canada from an infrastructure standpoint, policies that we implement to actually create a space which is very supportive of newcomers coming in.
Another thing you shared with me last time, like an anecdote that you went to a friend's house after so many months, finally for a dinner, and then it suddenly hit you that, oh my God, I haven't posted on LinkedIn today. And you quickly, whipped something up, you made something, and you finally posted it. During your dinner, okay. But tell me, that was almost 2 years ago, and that was coming from few thousand followers to now almost 70,000 on LinkedIn, right? Would you say that this posting process has become even more intense now, or have you been able to find a balance between your work and maybe your private life as well?
I think, honestly, the process remained quite the same.
Okay.
But now when you ask me, it should actually have improved now, where I shouldn't be writing last minute. But I think from the person I was last time as well, I've taken on a lot more in terms of not just things to commit to, but I think taking more of a responsibility on myself, even from an initiative perspective, how I was mentioning, I don't want it anymore to just be an event-to-event thing, because we are not an events company. We want to be more than that, right? So I think with those things, there's a lot of back-end that's happening. And I think with so many things going on, what I'm finding myself is that process of posting is still fairly similar. But I think there is definitely better output I'm able to create through it, because obviously the number of years that you spend doing it as well, like a skill set, right? So you'll still find me sitting at, like after this I have to post today, right?
Okay.
So I will be at a dinner today for sure. So I'll be whipping it up while I'm in my Uber going there. So yeah, so that's still the same.
Okay.
But maybe I should improve that. Yeah.
Isn't that like too much pressure, Ritika? Like, be honest, isn't it like too much pressure to post every day, like twice a day, and not just life is just surrounds around posting all the time, So isn't it too much pressure? Like, is it somehow harms your mental health also?
I don't think for me, like it is definitely a lot of pressure. But I think the way I post is actually to express myself.
Yeah.
I think that's something that distinguishes me from a lot of other creators on LinkedIn and I think the audience sees that as well. I think I'm just too authentic in the way I post, in the sense, which may not always be right because I'm too vulnerable sometimes. But it's like, I use it as a way to, I don't want to say vent myself, but a way to express myself. Things that I may have in my mind, I think I use that typing to just kind of get it all out. And it resonates as well with a lot of people. There are some things obviously I'd write but I don't post, but there are others which I always write and then post ahead. So I think for me, in fact, if anything, it helps me many a times.
Okay.
Because if you also keep a busy lifestyle, what ends up happening is you don't necessarily have the time to keep scrolling through LinkedIn and see what others are doing. I think the mental health pressure comes when you start saying, okay, their post is doing better because they're doing X things, right? I have so many friends who have grown so much faster than me on LinkedIn. But it's because for them, that's the focus, right?
Okay.
And they are investing hours thinking of what that post should be like, right? But I think it comes down to the individual and your priorities. For me, that may not be a priority, so I'm willing to rather invest that hour doing something else than spend an hour creating a post, So I think it depends on a lot of those factors.
And do you actually like sit and reply to those comments, or do you just went by?
I used to, and I'm so sorry. I apologize because I feel like I think sometimes it just gets so like, it's just post, get out kind of a thing. That I have actually, like, to your point, it's a good reminder. I'm going to do that today. I forget to, comment, respond to a lot of the comments. I have a lot of messages pending as well from people. So, but I think every month there's at least one day where I sit down and I just go on this rampage of replying to everyone, going and commenting on their posts as well. And, it goes back to showing again, those are things that actually help you grow your following a lot faster as well, right? But right now, the stage of life I'm at, I think my priority is getting some other things to a certain level while I still keep this going, right? So I still keep the consistency, but I think there's a lot more I can do to amplify what I'm already doing to grow a lot faster, obviously.
Yeah. So, obviously, like with more followers come more eyeballs, more mouths, and more opinions.
Yes.
What do you have to say to that?
See, I always say people are always going to talk, right? You may be someone insignificant, you may be someone very big or whatever it is. People always have things to talk about you. And for me, my response to them is always, I feel pity. Because the fact that someone has so much time to just think about you, I think first of all, that's a good thing for you because they're obsessing over you. The second thing is, I feel like, I think for me, my mom has always told me, just know what your end goal is, walk towards it. Don't need to look left or right. Just walk straight, right? And there are going to be a lot of noises come out. Close your ears, close your eyes, just focus where you want to go, and that's it. And I think when you keep doing that, you'll realize there'll be a lot of chatter initially, but it'll die down when you don't react or respond to it, right? Obviously, I'm not a very big influencer on Instagram or anything that there are going to be trolls kind of crazy.
Eventually,
but there have been people, obviously, who will troll to a certain extent, at least like on Instagram specifically I've seen. Trolling is a lot more of a behavior on Instagram than on LinkedIn, I feel. Like on Instagram, I don't even have as crazy of an audience, or very beginning, honestly, but you still see like people having more opinions. But
it's always about the accent. I read that.
Oh my
What
God.
is the accent coming from all the time?
I've been here 6 years. Maybe that's how, but I don't even notice it, right?
Yeah, exactly. And, also I want to talk about, the concept of this having unfair advantage. We all are blessed with certain gifts, which are very unique to us and nobody can take from us. What would you say, Ritika, is your unfair advantage in this journey of being an immigrant and somebody who is creating this online content and trying to make that impact?
I think it is connecting with people. I've realized that's something I do very well. And how I realized that is because I read this concept, I think, somewhere in some inspirational TED talk or something I was reading, but they said, how do you know what is your gift? Is by something that you can do so easily and get immense output from. And I've realized it is that connecting piece with people, the networking piece. Like if you look at Deloitte, my organization where I work like full time, or even through Redefined, these conversations we are having, even the community, I feel so much love from them. And I think a big part of it is because I think they are really able to connect with my story, and they're really able to connect, and I'm able to get people emotional when I talk to them. Something people have told me, even my friends and others, is that you make us want to share things we may not have shared with others, right? And I think a big part of it comes from the idea that, that empathy piece that my mom has drilled in me from a very early age is always putting yourself in the other person's shoes, right? Listening to the other person a lot, right? Just being there in their space and just hearing them out. And I think that allows the other person to feel valued and more comfortable to just share who they are. And me, I think being vocal about my vulnerabilities, my insecurities, allows them to feel comfortable sharing theirs as well, right? So I would say it's that piece I've realized, connecting with people.
Yeah, and would you say this has also helped you assimilate within the culture as an immigrant?
Absolutely, 100%. Not just simulate, but I think be successful, whatever you define that as, but being able to be successful and thrive in the culture, I think that is something that allows for. Sometimes when I reflect back, I think, even in my journey at a corporate firm like Deloitte, you imagine it to be so traditional sometimes, that it's very hierarchical based. And it can be at times, right? Maybe I'm just fortunate to have the team I have, but I've realized it's just the act of reaching out, being honest, transparent, authentic in your conversations with people, showing them where you want to be and how you plan to get there, and that you have what it takes, automatically allows them to A, see that potential, and B, be willing to support you in that journey, because they see you becoming that X person. You help them see that vision, and then they want to be by your side in that vision because it helps them as well, right? Right? So I've realized that plays such a huge role, because now people value you when you sit in a room, right? Beyond, and you're able to help them look you beyond just your role and your title. Because that's what a lot
Even
of us are defined by.
Even your looks and your accent, they look to look beyond that,
Exactly, right? Because when I walk into a room and when I'm sitting against someone who has a very fancy British accent, I'm sure people want to pay more attention to that person than me. Even I would, right? Because it just sounds different, and I think maybe traditionally we've just made to think that it sounds better, right? So we're likely to pay attention to that, but I think when you let people know that you know what you're talking about, and that you have put in XYZ effort to be where you are today, and are very vocal and advocate about it, I think people see the value and they're willing to listen, right? And I think that is where the biggest shift is, because a lot of us are constantly questioning our value, and because we spend so much time questioning it and are not able to identify our own thing, we can't communicate it to someone else. And if you don't communicate, no one's seeing it. Right? And now it's just cycle, because now you start thinking, okay, I don't have value because no one else is seeing it, right? Not realizing you're never actually showing it. Right? So.
And even to the point of bringing certain ideologies and our culture, people see that as a drawback, as a con, but that's actually an advantage. You are bringing like an outer perspective, which people in North America, or maybe for example, I'm in Montreal, people in Montreal might not have that. People really don't it's very underrated. People should start recognizing and accept their cultures and their upbringing a lot, because that has a lot to provide to this new world where you have decided to live in now.
Absolutely. And I mean, you see, companies are emphasizing on EDI. There's a big reason for it, right? Because you realize, I don't know the exact stats, but I know Forbes released an article recently that I was reading that said, when in a company you have diverse perspectives and opinions, you're more likely to have a more successful company, because you have more creative ideas coming to the table. Why? Because different perspectives, different backgrounds, different cultures, which allows you to be more creative. You see the biggest brands today are having such unique collabs, like even in the music industry, right? 100%. You see we have North American, US singers collaborating with singers from India. And it's just insane, the output that they're having on either sides, right? Because it's just so creative, it's just so unique. So I think not only identifying that you're unique in many ways, and this is not culture specific, right? I think that's what a lot of us forget as well. We think, oh, it's only our culture that makes us unique in Canada. No, there are many more things about you.
As a human, the qualities as a human.
Yes, and it's so different. Even if we may have the same quality, let's say we both are empathetic, the way we express that quality will be very distinct. Absolutely. The way others see it will be very distinct. So I think identifying that, which I think comes by spending a lot of time with yourself. I know it sounds very philosophical, but trust me, spending that time with yourself to identify who am I, right? What's that why for me? And once you identify that, being able to communicate that to people, I think it sounds so simple, But I think that's what a lot of us fail to do effectively. I'm sure even I fail to do that effectively in certain spaces, in certain industries. And that's why I may not get those opportunities, because there's this simple idea that no matter how much money you have, no matter how much experiences you have, no matter how smart you are, if people don't know who you are, people won't pay you or hire you. Simple. You need to be visible. As simple as that, right? That's the main crux.
Totally, yeah. And you talked about, talking to yourself and kind of introspecting. So when would you say within your 6 years, even before that, when was that moment when you actually had that conversation with yourself?
I have it almost every single day, right? Because I feel like every day I spend, I'm constantly like, I'm someone who's a high achiever, and I have a tendency to sometimes have very high expectations for myself in terms of things I want to put out. And you know how we're talking about the glass balls, plastic balls, you also realize, okay, family is important, because you never know when you can't meet them, right? You got to take out that time for them, right? And I think with all those things, you just realize like what you need to be, sorry, I forgot the question.
It was literally about when did you start to introspect?
Introspect, yes. I think, yes, that's why for me it's a day-to-day thing, because I feel like every single day I always start questioning myself, okay, am I doing the right things or not? Am I moving in the right direction, right? Because especially for someone like myself, and I'm sure a lot of other people might relate who are currently doing corporate jobs, but want to do other things as well, right? Why do we enter into corporate jobs at times, like a full-time role? I hope Deloitte's not seeing this. Is sometimes because you're looking for stability, right? As immigrants, I think by the time I was graduating, we were already getting rid of student loans. There was those pressures to pay off things. And I knew if I pursue full-time entrepreneurship, it would take some time, right? And I knew I did not have that flexibility. So I knew for me, the first reaction was, okay, let's get into a job that provides that stability, build more experience, and then get back. So I feel like doing multiple things and having my leg in two boats leads me to constantly be introspecting, okay, am I doing the right things at the right time, right? Because I feel like time is so limited. I don't want to feel like I wasted my time doing something when I could have done something else. So I reflect day to day, but there are those, once in a few months kind of introspections, which are those deep ones where, just sitting down, it's just by yourself and having that conversation and maybe even noting things down, which I think makes a huge difference. So for me, it just happened last week.
Has it ever led to having that self-doubt as well, that, oh my God, what am I doing?
Always. I think constantly. I think I always have self-doubt, because I feel, and more than self-doubt, I think it's I'm very confident, I think, in my abilities to do things. But I think what I feel hesitant about sometimes is me not living to the expectations or the potential I know I can live up to. So I don't think it's self-doubt, but it's the idea that I'm scared that I won't live up to my potential. Right? Because I know I can work X amount, I know I have X potential, but I feel like sometimes because of things around procrastination, distractions, so many other things that come in life, I just fear I don't want to become someone who isn't able to do that, right? I know I have it, but I just fear not living up to it.
Okay. And you also talked briefly about, talking to your parents and taking out the time. Do you actually speak to your parents every day?
Yes, absolutely. Even if it's 5 minutes, I'm walking to the office in the morning, I always give a call to my mom, right? On the way, maybe even when I'm coming back, unless I'm writing a LinkedIn post last minute while walking to the office, it will be a call to her, like just to check in how they're doing, everything's fine, see if they need anything from me, right? I think those things are important, right? And I always talk about this in my post as well, giving back to your parents, because we're so many miles away from them. Sometimes it's so easy to forget and so easy to focus just on what lies in front of you. And I know we say that, focus on the present and what's in front, but they are people we can't forget. They are the reason for existence in the first place and us being where we are. And I think so it's so important that you give back. And I always say this, even if it's no matter how affluent your parents are, even if it's an X amount, which I think, giving back to them, buying gifts for them, I think it's very important because they came in your life first before anyone else did. Any girlfriend, boyfriend, whoever comes in later on, they should be your first priority, right? So I think that's important, because I found myself initially, when you have that extra money put on the side, you tend to buy yourself a lot of things. And I remember that day when I was buying myself something, I just thought about it and I was like, wait a second, but did I buy my mom something? Because I know if she made extra money today, the first thing she would have done is invested that in me, you know? So I was like, wait a second, oh my God, what have I been doing? And I think that was a huge thing for me. So yeah.
So I'm glad to hear that, because I'm not the only one who talk to my parents every day, because sometimes I do have this conversation with few people and I tell them I talk to my parents every day. Like, every day? What, you talk to them every day? It's such a shock to people. But I'm glad to hear that, there's somebody else also doing the same thing.
But see, again, people are different, right, Gurasis? And I think we just need to realize that. And I think a lot of people may not realize today the importance of doing that, but they will later on, right? I think we're just fortunate to realize it a lot earlier. And it's not like you're spending 5 hours talking to anyone, right? It's just the 2-minute conversation as well, to just check in and be like, hey, I love you, hope you're doing well, let me know if you need anything. That's it.
Yeah,
right?
That's exactly what I did today. Before coming here, I was like, okay, I think I won't be able to talk for long today. I have a recording, but I'll talk to you tonight,
Exactly. But I think that's the least we can do for all they've done for us. Their entire life, even today, revolves around us, if you think about it, right? They're always like, okay, what are you doing? Are you okay? Have you eaten? Right? But our lives have moved on, right? So it's just,
So this next question, Ritika, is actually from one of our listeners. She's a religious listener of the podcast, and obviously she knew you. She follows you everywhere as well. And I happened to tell her that about that you were coming on the show. And this question is also something which will be a great segue to the point where I want to talk about redefined as well. So her question is, Ritika, what drives you to pursue your work with such passion and dedication? Is there a particular motivation or set of values that fuels your commitment to these initiatives?
Yeah, great question, first of all. I think what drives me towards doing what I'm doing, I think, is the smiles of the people behind the cameras, right? Smiles of the people who are coming to those events. Because I've seen what we do is not extraordinary. It's simple. Most of the companies, whatever we do is not like out of the world kind of genius ideas, right? But what we're doing is something which is so simple, but yet missing and so needed, right? And I feel like you see how the most simplest things around teaching someone around just how to advocate for yourself, or how do you embrace public speaking and, actually are able to effectively have conversations, communicate for yourself, makes such a huge difference in terms of opportunities that they get access to, right? Just recently, I was at St. Lawrence College for a guest speaker session, and there was this girl who came at the end. She's from India, and her English is not developed quite yet, right? And she was just telling me, Ritika, I feel like people don't like me in the class. No one talks to me because, and I noticed she was so struggling to speak because she wasn't able to complete her sentences. And I just had again, I didn't give her any advice which was out of the world, but I just told her, hey, I've been there. Right? There have been times where people may have had those questions for me, where people may want to avoid me, where people may not want to talk to me because I was missing words on how to fulfill my conversation. But I said, it comes with practice. And all you got to know is, you are at a starting step today. You are eventually going to get there. All you got to do is show up every single day and keep doing what you're doing. And I feel like just sharing that part that I've been there, and her being able to see me on stage presenting to an audience of 150, 160 makes her believe that, okay, you know what? Next time I can be that person. I told her, you absolutely can. And she's like, I'm going to work on this now. I said, you will. And I said, don't assume that people don't like you. Maybe you are not talking to them as well. That could be the other thing, right? So I feel like just that change of perspective helped her feel so grateful. And I saw tears in her eyes, and she got really emotional because she was like, no one told me that I have value, right? No one told me that I can be that X person. What I said, well, you can. Just look at yourself in the mirror and just see that person, and you'll just know it. And that made a huge difference for her. And I think that is what I live for, right? Knowing that you are able to impact even one person's life, I think is the biggest gift of all, right? And if, again, I know it might be running late on time, but I think something quick as well that happened with me is someone on LinkedIn had just messaged me, and it was such an intense message, but just in a message, right? Put in is that they said that they were at this low stage of their mental health where they at a point felt like giving up on life in general, but it was my posts where I spoke about rejections and insecurities that really helped them be like, you know what? I can bounce back. If she can, I can. And I think that's what I live for, is just to give them an example that if someone like me can, man, you are killing it out there already. You absolutely can. So that's the whole reason.
I also see you, Ritika, as someone who is obviously ahead in their immigrant journey. And you, who has lived that initial years in Canada or as an immigrant, you understand the pain points of people. And you know what really you have to do to cater to those pain points. Have I said it correct?
Yes, absolutely.
So I asked Ritika to tell me about the 5 events she would like to talk about and discuss. Obviously she organizes like millions of events, and it was hard for her to choose top 5.
Yes.
So yeah, here we go. So the first one is, Ritika, the One Young World event, which happened in Belfast. You were representing Deloitte Canada, and that was, I believe, in October 2023 last year, right? Tell me about your experience. How did that happen? And what were also like some of the perks that you got?
Oh my God, one of the best experiences of 2023, not gonna lie. I got to travel first class. So that
It was your first time, right?
In Belfast or in first class?
First class.
I've been fortunate that my parents could afford me before, but no, it was definitely one of my first times being paid by someone else to travel in first class. So that was definitely a first time, and hope for many more to come. But I think the overall experience was superbly enriching, because I think I got the opportunity to meet so many people from so many different cultures, backgrounds, all who were there passionate about change. There were in fact a lot of people from corporate companies as well, who were showcasing that duality where they're doing these full-time jobs, but at the same time they want to create an impact, get out there in the world. And I think it's so amazing that companies like Deloitte and so many others have these delegations which they're investing so much funds into as well, which showcases their commitment as well, right? To prioritizing impact and change, right, overall. So I think it was an amazing experience. It was, I think, an entire week that we were there in Belfast, in Ireland, and I got to go to London after that as well, which is really nice because it's close by. And I got to meet Malala Yousafzai.
Wow.
I hope I'm correctly pronouncing her name. I got to meet her, and there were quite a lot of I forgot the names of the other speakers, but there were quite a lot of the other like trailblazers and change makers in the market who we have all seen, on the big screens in a way. So I think overall it was amazing. Some of the perks, as I mentioned, was just the travel journey and the stay experience overall, because obviously it's through Deloitte, so it has to be supreme. And I think how it came about was actually so I didn't know about this opportunity for quite some time, but because I was creating a brand for myself within the firm of someone who's a change maker, someone who's passionate and advocates for immigrants, people kind of knew about me within the firm. So I had a lot of people reach out to me saying, hey, have you applied for this opportunity? And I was like, oh, never heard of it. So I think once I looked into it, I was like, oh man, this is something I would love to be a part of. And I was like, I have to be a part of this. And I manifested it for that entire, I think I got to know about it when one of the sessions had already gone and the next one was coming up. So I had a year in between, and I was like, I need to make it to the next one. And I was able to get referrals from other people within the firm as well. Usually a lot of the people who go attend these events are mostly managers and above. And so I was one of the first South Asian women, one of the youngest ones, in the most early roles to actually go in and be a part. And I think a lot of it came down to that branding piece, right? Me leveraging LinkedIn, me being that advocate, connecting with people, letting every single person in the firm, as many as people I could, letting them know how passionate I am about this. I even reached out to the CEO of Deloitte Canada, AV. I made sure I set up a coffee chat with him and let him know as well how passionate I am. And I think a lot of that enabled me to get access to that opportunity and for them to look beyond my role and my title and see me as someone who would add value to it as well.
So what was the eligibility criteria for it?
I think someone who has just gone above and beyond and created immense impact within the firm and outside. And I had, even though it was only 6 months I had been in the firm, I've already led 5 initiatives there, impact initiatives that we have within the firm. And I was doing already a lot of work with Redefine externally as well.
Of course.
And I'd been a part of a few panels I'd organized within the firm as well, focused on newcomer issues and immigrant issues. So with all of those things in mind, I definitely emerged as one of the people standing out, at least at my level for sure, and even across different managers. So that ended up letting me getting selected over others. And apparently there were 10,000 people who apply for that.
Oh, wow.
Because it's open to everyone. So it's the entire, across all Canadian offices.
Okay. Yeah. Oh, so it was only specific, if I'm not wrong, to Deloitte employers.
It was specific to Deloitte Canadian employers, yes.
Okay.
Yes, so if Toronto has 17,000 employees, you can assume if we have 7 offices, how many people there are.
Yeah.
And out of those many people, they select only 2 people to represent. Yeah.
Okay. And if anybody, would like to, really be a part of it, how can they do that?
I think so for a lot of external folks who may not be part of Deloitte, they definitely have One Young World scholarships that they give out. Okay. So Deloitte has some amazing perks, One Young World scholarships is where they fund your ticket plus they give you an X amount to visit. And I think I forgot the name of the other program, but it is another specific kind of One Young World scholarship itself. But in that, they provide you $50,000 plus they fund and finance your entire trip as well towards your initiative. So we were able to meet quite a few of those founders as well through this initiative who are actually out there. And a few of those founders got featured on Forbes 30 under 30 just yesterday or day before yesterday, yes.
Yeah, who also came on Shark Tank, I believe, right?
Yes.
What was the name?
Prachi.
Prachi, yes.
She was there as well, yeah.
So next event is, or I would say like the feature is the CTV Morning live appearance. Tell me about that. How did that happen?
So I've been fortunate to develop a good relationship with CTV News, specifically based out of the Atlantic. I think I've been there twice now. The initial segment I had with them was with Tia Upshaw, who is a founder of an organization called Black Women in Excellence. She's amazing, and she does this segment where every week I think she features a trailblazer and a change maker in the industry who is doing an impact. And I was fortunate to be one of the people she featured on that program as well. And that feature was in person. So it was lovely to be on the sets of a news channel and see how the back end happens. So it was really interesting.
It's a different feeling altogether.
Yes, right? Oh my God, it was so exciting, and I'm looking forward to many more. And the second one ended up happening online. So because I'd done the first one with them, they already knew a bit more about my organization. And since we had a lot of new events and programs coming up, they were like, hey, we love to kind of have you featured in to kind of share more about those stories. But next stop, global news, hopefully. Yes, we'll get that as well. Yeah.
Hopefully, love that. And the next one is the Deloitte's Newcomer Summit, which happened in April 2024. And like I told you before our recording, it was the talk of the town, talk of LinkedIn, so to say. There were 1,500 plus registrations, right? Out of which you chose 170 international students. And it was a day full of upskilling programs, panel discussions, networking, and much more. So tell me all about that. How did that came about?
That was such an exciting event. I think that was one of the days where I felt, oh my God, we're making something happen. Why I felt that was because even though we've done so many events with more attendees than that, right? But the reason it stood out so much to me because that was the first time where I felt I brought my two pieces together, right? I brought Deloitte, my corporate side, alongside my passion area, which is newcomers. And I was eventually able to bridge both. Because one of the things when I started in this space, someone told me was, Ritika, you can never bring the two together. And that day I was like, you watch me do it. And I was so happy to do that because I think it just shows that if you are strongly advocating, you can create flexibility. You can get people to agree to what you want to do, right? So very, very grateful to Deloitte, obviously, for sponsoring that entire initiative. And so as a One Young World delegate, what you get is you get an X amount to invest into different initiatives. And that was one of the initiatives since I was passionate about. I wanted to host that program. And I plan to actually host that program now across the different Deloitte offices as well to start with because it was a success here. So eventually we'll be there in Halifax, Ottawa, Montreal as well. So
please invite me.
Yes, for sure. You'll see the invite on LinkedIn and personal invite as well. But the way it came about is I was just having a conversation around how I want to do something like this. Deloitte was very open to it. And, we just got started with the planning process. It was no about any back and forth. They were like, okay, you want to do it? You can make it happen. I was like, yes, absolutely, I can. And that's how it got started. I had support of 1 to 2 people from our CSR team, which is the corporate and social responsibility team, who were helping me put things together. I think right from identifying who the speakers were, even reaching out to the CEO of Deloitte Canada. That was actually not something we were planning to do.
Okay.
But one day I was like, what would really add like a shine to this event would be if he's also there to address it. Because Anthony is actually an immigrant himself. So he also came from somewhere else. So I think he would really relate to the journey and he's spoken to it before. So I was like, it would only make sense if you could have someone like him. And we also had another speaker like Zabeen Hirji come in. She is also a very accomplished person out there, another immigrant, really advocating and you're really setting the bar high for immigrant women, honestly. Right? She's amazing. So I wanted to really have both of them and we were able to eventually get them. And I remember messaging Anthony feeling nervous that he might say no. And I messaged him, hey, we have an event happening. We'd love to have you share your perspective. He's like, yeah, we'd love to be a part. Reach out to my, EA or whatever. And it ended up working out, and the amazing thing was that post the event, he actually made a post talking about how amazing the event was, and then Duncan Sinclair,
I remember seeing that.
the chairs
He
at
gave you
Deloitte
like
as
a
well.
special thank you note. I see
Yes,
that.
he was amazingly sweet, and then Duncan Sinclair, the chair, also followed up, and there was so much happening even within the firm. We had so many people reach out, hey, how can we do this more? So now actually I'm working with our partner CS Salido, who is our Ontario lead, to fund this program every year moving forward. So that's something, fingers crossed, we completely execute, and I'm really looking forward for us to kick that off. But yeah, overall amazing event. It was completely Deloitte run. Only Deloitte professionals were there, all sharing about their experiences across different levels and ages. And we had, as you mentioned, 170 delegates or students.
How did you choose those? How did you choose those?
Yes, so that was, so what was interesting was, I've posted about events before, right?
Yeah.
But initially I know Deloitte was concerned about how will we have, like I was telling them, we can get 200 people. They're like, how will we get 200 people? Because the way most companies market is very traditional, right? Like this influencer marketing, I think they don't know how much power it can have. So I remember even I thought, okay, we might get max like 200 registrations.
Yeah.
And I remember I made the post at like 8 a.m. in the morning, and I just checked the post 12 hours later, 8 p.m. We were already at our 1,500 registrations. I was like, this is insane. There's so much interest. I got to do more events like these, right?
Yeah.
So I remember stopping the registration just in 12 hours, and then we were looking at people because we had a few questions actually. So once people registered, we sent them another follow-up form for them to actually write down why they deserve to be there at the event, like kind of like a job application, but for the event only, right? Because we wanted to make sure people who show up are actually invested in changing things for themselves and actually use the opportunity for good, right? I always say what you put in is what you get out. So we wanted people like that, and so we had that filtration process in. Eventually we were able to identify 150 actually we identified. 30 showed up on the day off to be like, hey, can we come in?
Oh, wow.
And we were like, okay, you know what, now that you're here, let's just get you in. So we had around 170 to 180 people actually at the end of the space. So yeah, that's how it happened. And it was meant to be a 7-hour event. It went on for 8 hours because we were just having conversations, and it was just so much fun. And yeah, I think overall it was amazing. The Deloitte employees also enjoyed themselves so much just giving back. And I think the energy in the room was just, yeah, amazing.
And how long was the preparation process for it?
So we technically started planning like 3 months before.
Really?
Yes,
Okay.
yeah. But me being me, I think the main preparation happened a month before. Yes.
Did any point you feel like maybe I have a bit more than I can chew at any point?
There are always times like that. I feel like my mom always tells me, she's like, you always have more on your plate than you can chew. And I think, yes, I agree there are times like that, but it's about, again, prioritizing. It depends from what perspective you see, right? If you are someone who prioritizes on an hour-to-hour basis on what things you have to do and not to do, you won't feel like you have too much. So I feel like I operate in that way, which allows me to feel more balanced. But yes, there are times where it's like, oh my God, too many things coming at me. My project work as well. This redefined events were happening at the same time. We are launching 3 big programs this summer, which is becoming intensive. We are launching our first pre-departure program as well, which is becoming intensive. So many things. So yeah, it was overwhelming, but I think just taking a deep breath and getting started step by step helped. Yeah.
I believe there were like around more than 100 people who posted about the event, right?
Yeah, which was insane. And I mean, we have seen that through our previous events. I think we have the same number of people post, but I think for Deloitte especially was very new because they for the first time saw that, you know, like a lot of people organically without investing in ads or anything, they were just posting and talking about the event, right? And it benefits both the organization and the students themselves, right? Because on average, each student who posts about an event, their followers get bumped up by 20-30% within the first week or so. Because of just the people they tag and everything. So I think it ends up being a good way for both. Yeah.
And majority of them were talking specifically about your personal branding workshop. Tell me about that.
Yeah. That is my staple workshop. Even today, I was in the train actually coming from Toronto to Montreal, 5 hours. I had 2 sessions happen in the train, both on personal branding and LinkedIn, because I feel like that's the area or the niche where I would want to come across as an expert in. And not because I'm an academic expert in that space. I haven't done a degree in that or in business at all, but I think, or in marketing. But I think it's something I've just learned through my experience, and because it has been such a big transformation for me personally. Like there are some instances I think back and I'm like, how me, right? Why did that person walk up to me out of so many other people in this office and so on and so forth? But I think it was just that piece which is so simple, but yet complicated, which I think can create a difference. And I want to see the same for others as well. Yeah.
Moving on to the next event, which is the Career Mastery events, which you organized, and were speakers and professionals from various companies like KPMG, Deloitte, obviously RBC, Scotiabank, Accenture, and many, many more. Tell me about that.
Yeah, so the Career Mastery event started mainly because of the idea that, I felt we wanted to have something recurring that's happening in the same format, in the same duration across different cities, so that we can cater to each audience and demographic and their needs as well during the same time. So this usually we host during, the main job hiring seasons that happen. The Newcomers Collision obviously is another one that comes up, but I think this is something we host after that event, just to kind of fill in that gap during which we have other one-timer events happening. But I think the whole perspective of this event is where we bring in the professionals not just to network with people, but in a way also spend one-on-one time where we rotate them across the different professionals, and each professional is talking to the students or guiding them in their area of expertise, right? Someone may be an expert in resume and cover letter, while someone else may be an expert in creating a LinkedIn profile, while the third person may be an expert in networking, right? So giving them the opportunity to build a personal connection with each mentor and professional in that space, understand about their company, but also gain their expertise in that X area that they are so passionate and great at, I think was our concept going around with it, so that now not only are students upskilled, but they also have a network to tap into. And because they're connecting one-on-one, that connection I feel is a lot more stronger than like connecting in a group with people. And to this day, I honestly was chatting with one of the directors at Deloitte, and she said through one of our events, someone she had met who attended our events, she was at the director's house having dinner with her.
Oh, wow.
Right? So that is how great of a relationship they developed, right? So I was so happy when I heard that. I was like, this is exactly what I want, right? That is where accessibility comes in, right? So sometimes people might think, oh, it's such a simple idea, but it can have a huge impact based on how you carry it out. And now the fact that people are having such strong relationships being established with such people, initially you would think as so far-fetched for you to connect with, showcases the power of doing it right. Right?
Exactly. I think there's something about the in-person events, like for example, when I went to Toronto last September and I came to one of your events as well, Women Empowerment event that you had, I actually connected with few people from there, like Tuba and Ampai and Mujda, and I knew them like from LinkedIn. Again, it seems like it felt pretty far-fetched. Maybe I can't reach out to them, maybe through you, but not directly. And through that event, I was able to build that connection. I've actually interviewed most of them. Those episodes will be out soon as well. But I think there's something about in-person event, that connection you built. And also I feel like somebody like me who's pretty like an interpersonal communication is pretty good, I feel like. And I would like to always, prefer those rather than doing those online events,
Yeah, no, absolutely.
So moving on, the next event, Ritika, I want to talk about is the Newcomers Collision Summit that you organized last year in Toronto in September 2023. And there were obviously workshops, panel discussions. There were also employees from EY, KPMG, Deloitte, once again, obviously, RBC and Scotiabank. And some of the topics I believe you guys covered were the financial literacy, job search, personal branding, academic excellence, networking, obviously, and many, many more. Tell me about that.
So I think that event, the difference between that one compared to the Career Mastery events is the Career Mastery event is purely focused on career, as the name suggests. But the Newcomers Collision idea is, as the name again suggests, is to bring different facets of the newcomer journey together. So that's why our focus is on touching base on the financial aspect. Housing is something I know we didn't cover, but I think it's something we plan to cover this year as well, because my whole goal is, that's why we do it in September, because that's the time where you have one of the biggest cohorts of international students and immigrants coming in, right?
Exactly.
And the reason we do it a bit earlier in September, the goal is so that now that they have come into the country, how can we through this event set them up for success for the rest of the entire year or the next 4 years that they're coming in for, right? So giving them all those insights and all those nudges that are necessary to kind of get them started and get hit the ground running and maybe have realization, so that they don't end up just doing things what every other person around them is doing, right? Because I think once you get involved into things, it's a lot more difficult to come out of it and change paths. But if you can very initially nudge people to show the different directions and what the outcomes of those different directions can be, it now becomes a lot more easier and clear for them to know which path to choose and how to proceed there. So that's the whole goal of that event. It's again one of those 6 to 7 hour events, right? Where we're trying to make it very holistic. We have a combination of workshops, a combination of panels that we host as well, and a lot of networking sessions in the middle. Obviously, breakfast, lunch included, with the whole idea. And we cover topics around, as you said, right from the perspective of, okay, how do you understand what is the mindset you need to be having to be successful in North America? To then even the idea of what are the expectations from you in this country, whether it be from an employer, whether it be just to be, creating a career for yourself. How do you know what's out there and prepare accordingly? Because I think the mistake we make is we just think all we got to do is prepare ourselves. So we keep getting certifications after certifications, not realizing, buddy, that's not something even the other person is looking for, right? And you are already investing your time. Now when you invest time, you are thinking, oh, this will give me great outcomes. But it's not made specific to the audience you're reaching out to, right? So if that's not what they expect initially either, you're now putting in effort for something that will give you no returns. Right? And that you could save that time doing something else. So our whole goal is to provide that, and at the same time give them all those tactical, tangible skills around, like, the resume, the cover letter, the classics as well, and the personal branding piece, which I think is one of the biggest ones, and networking. I think we spend a lot of time talking about how do you effectively build relationships. Because still to this day, almost 60 to 70% of students still don't know how to effectively network. For them, it's just that one-time coffee chat, but it's actually a lot more than that. So that's the whole concept of that event.
I like the idea, like, you're gonna do it in September, and it's absolutely correct. You said at that time, this is one of the, the sessions starts, and that's when I came, at least, and I feel like at that time, if I would have something like this, an event like this, I might get a little bit of reassurance that, okay, my decision is not wrong, right? I feel like that would be one of the reasons you want to do something like this, right?
Absolutely, and that's the whole goal, exactly how you mentioned, because even when I came in September, right? So how I said, I met that one friend, and that automatically made me feel at ease. I want this event to be kind of that friend that tells them, hey, you're okay, right? We got you, right? We're giving you what we think you should need, and if you need anything else, let us know and we'll connect you with the right people. That's the whole idea, to just make people feel like they're safe. Right?
Absolutely. Yeah, this is like a safe space. And also you're able to find your own community, so to say.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Perfect. Another event, which not something you told me to talk about, but I'll still talk about, is the Redefine Your Career speaking tour that you did in India. You visited 5 cities, including Pune, Delhi, Mumbai, Amritsar, my city, and Jaipur as well. So tell me first of all, how were you able to connect with all these institutions? And once again, like, since how long you were preparing for that?
So honestly, I didn't prepare that long for that. Again, I think a month before, I just started getting in touch with institutions, and I just created 1 or 2 LinkedIn posts saying, hey, I'm going to be there in India. My visit to my parents was long overdue, and me being me, I was like, okay, I'm not just going there for visiting, even though I love them to the heart. But I was like, you know what, I got to make use of my time as well alongside there. So that's when I was like, why not just spread the word of what we're doing here, but back home in India as well. That would give me an idea of how the market and the audience is there. Does our content appeal with them, right? Does my journey appeal to them? And I realized it did to a big extent, right? So it started by reaching out to institutions, cold messaging, literally on LinkedIn, being like, hey, like, because, I'm connected with a lot of people who I've never actually spoken to. So I will literally filter based on my first connections and just start messaging them because I'm already connected with them, saying that, hey, we've been connected. I think you've been following my journey for quite some time. This is what I do. Would love to get involved and, see how I can contribute to your audience and to your students, right? So that's how it started. Obviously, there are people who hear back from, you don't. I ended up hearing back from a lot of the different institutions, and thus ended up deciding on the different cities as well. Initially, Jaipur actually wasn't a part of the city I had to go to, but when I made the post, I had a few people, universities reach out saying, hey, can you come here as well? So that's how that got added to my list also. And then I was fortunate enough, I forgot the name of the organization actually. If I remember, I'll let you know. But they're an organization who are connected with multiple high schools. And they then they saw my post as well. And one of their team members got in touch with me and they're like, hey, we would love to have you speak at a few of our schools. So through them, I got access to like 5 to 6 schools at once, right? So that's where the school piece came in. And then universities was all through LinkedIn and them seeing the work that I do. And it was absolutely amazing to be in this space. And, I had my mom in the audience, so that was really nice. Because, when I left India, I was someone who was very shy, never stood in front of the stage, and now I was on the stage in front of her.
I don't believe that. You were shy, is it?
No, I was. Oh my God. Before I came to Canada, I was so shy. I would never speak. I used to literally hide as if in the audience. I was a very different person. Yeah, I think I lacked a lot of confidence then, but I think it's been changed quite a lot since then. And I think for her to see me so confident on stage, and in India, because of our population, we had 200, 300 people in the room. So seeing that audience size, clap for your daughter, obviously feels great. And I think India has an amazing culture of rewarding their speakers as well, right?
Yeah.
That idea of giving, even if it's a thing
a potted plant as
yes,
well.
a potted plant, or
exactly.
I have so many trophies I got from India. Literally, I have 10 trophies at my house right now, because each institution I went to, they were like, hey, this is an award from our side for the work that you're doing. And it was just so nice. So yeah, that entire experience was just amazing. And I think there's one of the schools that we work with there, why am I forgetting names today? But Education on Wheels is actually an initiative we're doing out of Jaipur in Rajasthan. And I was able to visit the students who were able to fund. So there is this school bus that we fund, which provides education to about 1,000 children every month there. And that's a redefined initiative alongside an organization that's locally based out of there as well. So we work together to fund it. Udan Society, that's the other organization. So we work together to fund those children's education. So it was amazing meeting the children. They all, daughters and sons of street vendors, people who do begging on the streets. So it was really nice to see their transformation as well. So yeah, overall amazing.
It sounds definitely awesome. Tell me about if you can give us a synopsis of those events. Obviously, we could not see the videos and everything. What was in the talks?
Yes. So my talks were mostly around, I think there were different topics. The main topic was around, again, the personal branding piece and advocacy, because I think that's something we don't often talk about in India, at least, right? At least not in high schools and not even colleges, right? If you look at our curriculums back home, even here, honestly, it's not like it's made a part of the curriculum as it should. Even back home, it's definitely not a part of the curriculum. So a lot of students, even though they're so hardworking, trying to do every single thing, they really don't know who they are. They haven't figured it out because they are going by the books of what others have been telling them, their teachers are directing them to do, right? Yeah. And I think, so I was speaking a lot about that. I think there was a lot of discussions around how do you work with your parents as well, right? Because I think, as coming back to our cultures, a lot of us are many times, our parents are very involved in our lives as compared to what I've seen, in North America and other places, which is a good thing. But it comes with its other side as well, where sometimes because our parents have had different lives, they love us, and that's why they tend to guide us in exact that direction, which may not always align. And a lot of students were struggling because they're like, I really want to do this, but my parents just don't allow for it. How do I figure this out, right? So I think that was another piece. The third piece was, I think, around just empowering communities. There was an NGO, again, I was working with, which caters to students of children of, street vendors and lower underprivileged communities. And I remember I was talking to them, they have limited resources, right? And one girl, she said, I want to be a singer, right? And I was like, go out there and become a singer. She's like, but I don't think I can ever be there, right? She's like, I think I can only clean there. And when she said that, I was like, what made you think that? But, it was just so interesting, the fact that, interesting not in a good way, obviously, but, we have so much dictated sometimes. Our surroundings dictate the limitations we place on us. Yeah. No one is limiting her to be a speaker. But in her head, that limitation has been created, that it's not a life I can ever afford because it lies beyond my pay scale today, right? But that's not true. Yeah. Right? That's your parents' pay scale. Your pay scale may be something different. So I think just empowering communities as well by sharing my story of how I may have broken some of those glass ceilings. And I mean, for them, obviously, they have a lot more challenges than I had. I'm very fortunate. But I think sharing just that perspective, being a woman, really helped them get that empowerment. And I think they were just like, Didi, thank you so much. And a lot of them were crying, literally, which shows you how sensitive they are and how mature they are at such a young age. I'm talking about the age of 8 years, 6 years, right? And they've gone through so much that they've become so mature at such young ages. So I think it was a lot about those kind of discussions, and it was just rooms full of students.
And instilling that sky is the limit.
Yes,
for sure.
Yes, absolutely.
And you also briefly talked about, working with parents, and I think I've mentioned it a couple of times on the podcast. I'll mention it once again. I feel like our parents were just product of their own time. and they just try to
Absolutely.
pass on what they were taught whole their lives.
Yeah.
So I would say we should not, or never just blame your parents for the
Yeah.
thing, or maybe if they're over possessive because maybe they have seen the world and
Yeah.
they're little, concerned about you. They know the society around you, and also because we live in a culture, somehow we do things based on the social ramification of things.
Yeah.
So I think I would say just like a maybe like a guide to students or anybody, like don't blame your parents. They are part of their own time,
Yeah.
and they were trying to do the best they can at that time.
Yeah, and I think like to your point, you said it very well. Is like I think we can't blame anyone. It's your
Yeah.
life at the end of the day, right?
100%,
If you
yeah.
want to blame, keep blaming, right? If you want to follow, keep following, right? At the end of the day, I always say to people is, see, your parents and other people have a lot of things to say.
Yeah.
You choose who to listen to, right? And I think never be rude to anyone about it. I think even with my parents, there are things I absolutely listen to them, but there are things which I may not agree with. I don't just leave it in the air.
Exactly.
I will address that with them as well, right? Because see, they're your parents at the end of the day, they will understand. I rather have the friction today than having it later on, right? So I think in the shorter term, don't fear the short-term friction, right? Because trust me, if you delay it, the long term becomes worse, right? It spoils
Yeah.
a relationship overall, right? And that's why I see a lot of people, their relationship growing apart with their parents, especially when they come abroad as well, because they just think they have evolved so much.
Yeah.
And we have caught on to our lives. You've become independent. You're focusing on the now, which is your friends around you, the other people you have built as family here. But you sometimes forget them because
Yeah.
they may be where exactly you left them, right? But you are not
you have
where
moved
they
on.
left you,
Yeah,
right?
I like
and
that.
I think that's important. It's important to think about because you are being so ungrateful when you don't even take out some fraction of your time to give back to them, right? So I think even people like who make comments around, oh, you're spending time talking to your parents, I feel like I think 5 minutes a day, I think is the least they can expect out of you, right?
Yeah,
If anything,
100%.
you owe them everything, right? Again, not all are fortunate to have the most supportive parents, but I think for the ones, for all of us that do, I think it's important we appreciate it and set good examples because your kids in the future will treat you the same how you treat your parents. So just
Yeah.
keep that in mind. Karma is right there, right?
Yeah.
So yes, don't blame them. I think they're doing their best. Their life still revolves around you, but
Yeah.
you have moved on. So just make sure you still make them a part of your life. I
Yeah.
think that's the least.
Totally. And one thing I'll add to that is even a bit, having that relationship being evolved to be actually able to have that conversation with your parents. And I say that because I come from like a very patriarchal upbringing, and maybe there were a few things I could never discuss with my
Yeah.
father, for example,
Yeah.
or my mother could not even like say a few things at that time,
Yeah.
not because she could not. It was just organically not taught to her that she could, right? Or even like, for example, I have two sisters, and at one point I realized, I saw that my sisters had a voice, but they were just like in a certain atmosphere where they were not given the opportunities somehow through societal, again, pressures to speak. So I feel like now, it does not happen with just one conversation with your parents. It's going to happen eventually with multiple conversations, using the correct words with them, maybe the right analogies to tell to them. So I think this is such a great topic.
It's an iterative process. It doesn't happen
Absolutely.
overnight. It's something you got to build, right? It's not like the first time I spoke to my parents about things, they were like, yeah, let's do it, right? There are
Yeah.
times where there is friction, but you keep doing it repetitively and you're very transparent, honest, and authentic. Similar with social media, similar with your parents.
Absolutely.
Similar in any relationship. If you're honest, transparent, that relationship will last and be successful. If you're not, it's going to be messy, right? Simple.
Before we get into the final segment, you want to say something about the internships you guys are working on and where can people connect with you?
Yes, definitely. So we have internship programs that we're offering, mainly focused on the idea of helping you develop Canadian experiences, the challenges we are talking about. So if you're interested, reach out to us on our website, redefine.social, or you can just message us on LinkedIn as well. All the forms are on there.
And I'll put the links to that in the show notes if you're listening on the audio, and
Yes.
obviously in the description box if you're watching this video. So Ritika, before we get into the last final game segment, I have added this new segment in this season, which is basically like Know Your Host, where I
Yeah.
ask my guests to ask me any question they might have.
Oh, okay. So what has been your biggest learning in the last 6 years you've been here?
One thing which I discovered is definitely a cook within me.
Okay.
It might not be the best answer, but I think I've answered this before also. Definitely that. I think I didn't know what to cook, obviously, apart from cooking Maggie or maybe boiling few eggs, make an omelette maybe.
Yes, you gotta invite me over and cook some
100%.
amazing like palak paneer.
I will. So yeah, definitely I think I'm able to try different cuisines now and I've experimented. And second thing which I've learned is not to have that fear of judgment anymore. Yeah. Maybe I had that a lot before, once again, coming back to the point of having social ramifications and taking things in mind, what will people say, but I think now I don't care anymore. That is something I have definitely evolved from, yeah.
Amazing, wow.
Perfect. So now in the final segment, Ritika, I call it Beneath the Accent. I'm going to ask you a couple of questions. You can ask them in one word or a sentence, or however you feel like. The idea is just to know more about you, okay?
Perfect, one word it is.
So what advice would you give to younger Ritika and at what age?
At what age and what advice? I think when I was 10 years old, because I was not confident in myself at all. I think so the advice I would say is, hold your head high and just know that you have what it takes and keep going. Keep doing what you're doing and shut your ears. And that's it. Just walk.
Okay. Yes. And tell me about an experience where you had a significant cultural shock.
Cultural shock. Yes. The first time I remember I had a cultural shock. So one of my friends, her name's Marina, is based out of Vancouver. She is... I forgot from where she is, but yeah, she's from somewhere, and she follows the same North American traditions. So I remember we had finished our class at 4 p.m. and she was like, "Do you want to go grab dinner?" I was like, "Dinner? 4? Are you serious? Like this is my lunch time, like late lunch or maybe like tea time, right?" I was like, "Let's get coffee." She's like, "No, I eat dinner around this time." I was like shocked. So that was one of the biggest cultural shock pieces
for me
because
as
I was
well,
like, we had dinner at like 8.
Yeah.
Right? Or maybe early dinner is like 7, but 4 p.m. I was like, this is too much. So that was one of the biggest things for me.
Definitely. Okay. One dish that brings the most comfort and nostalgia to you.
Oh my God, rajma chawal. Oh, okay. I love it. My colleague recently asked me, Ritika, what can I cook for you? Because he is amazing at cooking. And I was like, I'm missing home. So he cooked me rajma chawal and it was the best thing ever.
Okay. Yeah. Any funny story related to your accent or English?
Yes. I don't know if it's relating to my accent, but I remember when I first day of university, when I was in my part of our, the onboarding sessions that we have, someone in my group, she was from Canada itself, and she asked me, "Wait, aren't you from India?" I said, "Yes, I am." She's like, "Do they speak English in India?" I said, "Yes, they do." Like she was just shocked that I was from India and the fact that I could speak English. And I was like, Britishers colonized us for quite some time, in case you forgot. So that was just interesting. Yeah.
Of course. Okay. What's the favorite cultural celebration or like a festival in Canada of yours?
Like a Canadian culture?
Yeah. Something like Thanksgiving, I was very fascinated by.
Christmas I really like because I feel like I've known of the concept of Christmas, never really celebrated it. Yeah. So that one, yeah.
Okay. A tip for fellow immigrants adjusting in a new country?
Be yourself and get out there.
Okay. Who was your first friend that you made in Canada? And are you still in Connect?
Just Neer.
Okay, are you still in Connect with her?
Yes, yeah.
Oh, okay. What is this something that you ate for the first time in Canada?
Poutine.
Did you like it?
No. No.
Okay. This is the common answer on the poutine, even the following one. No.
No.
Okay. And what's this one law that you would create that everybody has to follow?
In Canada or anywhere else?
In general, just a law that anybody has to follow.
You have to do at least one kind deed every week.
Okay.
Yes.
And how would you describe Canada in one word or a sentence?
Complicated.
Okay.
Yes.
And lastly, what advice would you give to me before leaving?
Do what you're doing.
Okay.
Keep doing it, no matter what. Yeah.
Thank you. And finally, how would you describe your experience being on the podcast?
Enriching.
Okay.
Yes, different. I always said this to you, right?
Yeah.
I go to a lot of podcasts, I keep asked the same questions and I get bored of it because I'm like, my audience might be wondering why she's saying the same things, but it's like the question is the same. So I felt like there were different pieces we touched on. So yes.
Okay. Great. Very, very glad to hear that. Thank you so much, Ritika, for
being
on the
me.
season 2. I would say, thank you for coming back once again.
Yes, yeah. And now in person, then, online.
Something different about the in-person thing, right?
Yeah, I'm excited. I'm looking forward to the content coming out and hopefully the audience can, feel the energy in the room of kind of the passion that we have towards immigrants and newcomers. So yes, looking forward to it.
Awesome. And it's almost 4:30. Let's go grab dinner.
Yeah.
All right.
Yes.
Thank you everyone for watching and staying with me this far. Thank you so much for watching this. I really appreciate you. Subscribe to this, and you can listen to the audio version of this on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Google Podcasts, Amazon Music, or wherever you consume your podcast. And you can also check out the previous episodes as well as my previous conversation with Ritika on all these audio platforms as well. So until then, take care. Bye-bye, and let's continue knowing each other beneath the accent.